Her skin tinted brown sheets and it's Chanel. Hit the highway when she hitting my cell. Body talking to me, I've
Welcome,
been
Jessica
listening
Malone, to
well. The
Coaching in
type
Session. How are
to
you
make
doing
you
today?
forget that you
I'm
been
good.
living
How are
it.
you?
It's for the
I'm doing
grown
well.
and the
Thank you so much for
sex.
coming
Go
on.
ahead and
Going
taste.
to be talking about something new today, lifestyle. You are a lifestyle coach. When we think of lifestyle, I think many people might first get into their mind like lifestyle. How am I living? I have a 3 bedroom, 2 bath. I have this type of car. Is that lifestyle, right? Maybe it's more than that. But in your own words, can you explain what a lifestyle coach is and how you help people?
Yeah. So I tend to think about my coaching in terms of fulfillment. So I think to your point, lifestyle can be, what car do I drive? What clothes do I own? What does my house look like? But I try to take things one step further with people and not just considering what they have, but do they really have what they want, right? Because sometimes we live lives that we have a lot. We have a lot of great things. We've checked a lot of boxes, but the things that we really want and desire are still missing. So when I think about lifestyle coaching, it's that kind of compare and contrast, right? What is it that you really want? What do you actually have in your life? And how do we create space for the things that you really desire?
And you said wants. Wants is one of those things where it's good to be individualized to the person. What's the
Mhm.
difference between want and need?
Ooh, good question. I mean, I think that our needs are very basic. In a first world country, in the century that we live in, we've expanded the definition of needs. But I think needs are really about connection. Do I have food? Do I have water? Do I have clothes on my back? Am I able to connect with people on a regular basis? Outside of that, I think everything else really is just a want and an expanded version of that. So, we can live our lives in a small, maybe 300 square foot home. Like that covers my need of having shelter. But the fact that I want a 2 bedroom apartment or I want a 5 bedroom house, right? That's just an expanded version of that need. And I think it comes down to, just what kind of life do you envision yourself living?
Yeah, when I was single, I had my apartment. I had a 2-1, perfect for me, right? Had my
Uh-huh.
office, I had my bedroom. When started a family, I was like, okay, this 2-1 is not going to fit.
Right.
So you get a 3-2, and then you're like, okay, now I'm in this 3-2. It's
Yeah.
working pretty well. And then you're realizing this 3-2 is not big enough. So now you're in a 5-3. And it's like we keep going up. Is
hmm
there a point where too much is too much?
Absolutely. I think so. And I think you made a great point just thinking about our perspective on space. I think that having space is important physically, mentally, like you need space for that peace of mind. But at the same time, when we have space, we tend to fill it. And so
Mhm.
sometimes we fill that space with more than what we truly need, right? As we let our wants get the best of us. And so now it's like, do I feel burdened by the life that I live? So I think for everybody, that definition of what is too much varies by individual. But yes, we absolutely can get to a point where it's like, I have so much space and I've tried to use all of this space and now I just feel stuck.
And do you think that's a correlation to society? Because I know, especially here in America, many people have a tendency to become materialistic.
hmm
It's easy to become materialistic because Amazon's always recommending something that we didn't need, but now we
Right.
know we want.
Right.
And so our carts are always full, whether we go to the grocery store or we go to an online store, where we're always filling ourselves with something else. And we
Mm-hmm.
have a tendency to always want the latest and the greatest, right? We have a perfectly good car that can get us to A to B, but they have this new model that can do one more thing that ours can't do. And we say,
Right.
you know, we need that model. We have
Right.
a phone that is 1 year in the past, and we say, you know, we need this new phone because it has this better camera by 2 megapixels. And I mean,
Right.
yes, I mean, it's awesome to take pictures, especially of like your family and then of traveling if you're like a world traveler. But we get to that point where we are always trying to keep up with the Joneses. And
hmm
what does that do to someone's mindset when they're always in that race to say, okay, I have to stay up to the latest and greatest. I have to be amongst my peers with the latest iPhone, because if you have an iPhone 6, you're probably being made fun of right now.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm an Android user, so I get made fun of literally all the time. But I think to your question around mindset, it's such a tricky thing. I have a background in sales, and when you think about sales, marketing, advertising, it all boils back to the same thing. I have to show people that they're missing something, that they have a pain point. right? And so generally when we think about needs, it's like a physiological need. I'm having hunger pains. I need to eat, right? It's cold outside. I need shelter. But as we move into, like you mentioned, like in a first world country where for many of us, our basic needs are generally covered on a day-to-day basis, it's like, how do these companies get you to want stuff? Well, they make it seem like you also have this need for something else, right? So now I have this pain point. Well, if you had those 2 extra megapixels, think of what you could do. And now my brain is exploring all these possibilities. And I think from a mindset perspective, what that does for us is it keeps us from remembering what's most important. And we start doing a lot more comparison. And at the root of everything for most people who are feeling stuck, not working on their goals, etc., it's because they don't feel like enough, right? It looks different for every single person, or how it sounds in their mind is different for every person, but it always boils down to that. And so when we are constantly thinking about what's out there, what's better, how it could be improved, we just feed into that deck insecurity over and over and over again. And we just lose sight of what really matters to us.
And I think that's exactly where you come in, because people are so quick to cover up themselves with Gucci, designer, and they might not be confident. They might not be courageous or willing to put themselves out there. So they say, you know what, this is who I am. They drive a certain car, they have a certain phone, certain lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go down that lifestyle. They're thinking, okay, if I'm this type of person, maybe I'll morph into this person.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an idea of, for example, let's say you want to be successful, you want to be wealthy, that you maybe purchase things above you so you can grow into that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily always work, because sometimes with that rise in lifestyle is going to increase your work. So you have to work more. You might be away from your family more. And it's something that you might not be inclined to do. You say, you know what? I don't want to work all these hours, but I do want this lifestyle. There's a balance between what we are willing to do versus what we would like to have. Do you find that when you're talking to people and then starting that journey with them, that you have to say, hey, this is where you want to be truly versus where you're presenting yourself to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really interesting, a lot of my coaching focuses on high achievers. That's the audience that I tend to work with. And what you're describing, right, is just this idea of fake it till you make it. What I find with my clientele is they make it and it's like, it's not what I wanted though, right? And like, that's the potential drawback. Yes, you can get the car and the house and all this stuff and hope, to your point, that you just kind of grow into it, that you morph into this person. But what if you actually don't like being that person, then it's like, this was really all for nothing. So we have to do a kind of an assessment. I believe they're the experts, right? So I don't tell them what that life should look like, but we really start thinking about like, what is this keeping you from? To your point, the time, the money, the energy, everything that you're investing into this lifestyle could be utilized for something else. It's just an opportunity cost. We can keep going down this road. You can keep being miserable, or we can start peeling the layers back, taking the stuff away, and now you can put that into good use.
Is there a preference why you work with like high achievers versus someone who might be lower in the standard of their life goals and purpose?
Yeah. So for me, it's more just about alignment. I myself, I've been an achiever my whole life. And so that's a group that I tend to resonate with. I think the concepts that I talk about are applicable to anyone. Like anybody can take these concepts and change their life. But I get the high achiever, I get what they're going through, the mindset, all that stuff. And so that's why I put my focus there.
Yeah, definitely. It's similar to like a teacher. For example, they might say, I like kindergarten, or I like middle school, or I like high school.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they can't teach other grades. It's just that they have a preference. I mean, when I was a teacher, I taught K to 12. I didn't necessarily have a preference. I always favored elementary because they're always more vibrant. Middle school is a headache. High school is pretty simple because you just tell them what to do and they do it. But when we get clients sometimes and we're like, okay, well, let's look at your life. Let's really dissect it. And we look at what they built. And they might have built something amazing. They might have built an empire. They started a company from nothing. Maybe they had a struggle or a story of struggle, and now they're finally successful. Is there some type of fear attached to losing what they have gained from that perspective of, I have worked my whole entire life to achieve this. And then now I have that fear of losing it. And it's not so much of adjusting my lifestyle to what I want it to truly be, but I'm afraid to lose it or to give it up into something that I'm not sure. And I think many people get into this idea that they know a destination. They're like, okay, once I get this, I'm going to be happy. That's a contingency. For example, once I get $1 million house, I'll be happy. So I'm living the $1 million lifestyle.
Right.
Once I get a Lamborghini, I'll be happy. But until then, am I not happy? What is that process for helping someone with that fear and then helping them understand that the contingencies that they give themselves are just a facade?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I would say the way that we tend to approach it is, I would say it's twofold, because sometimes the fear is losing it, and sometimes the fear is around sustainability. So for some people, it's like, I have achieved so much, and the only reason I'm not going after what I really want, even though I've already identified that, is like, I don't know if I can be successful in that. Right. I'm successful in this existing identity. Maybe that's academic, or I'm in the corporate world. But now that I want to launch a business, now that I want to do something outside of that, I don't know that I'm going to be good at it. So I'm not so worried about losing this life that I have. I maybe want that, but can I actually sustain this life that I say that I want to build? Because I've never really experienced it. And then I think, to your point, on the other side of that, you do have this fear of failure, of losing things. But I think more people are worried about losing like their relationships or the identity that they've built, and how that impacts the other people that are in their life. Right. So if I don't continue being this person, whether I like it or not, how does that impact my relationship with my mom, with my dad, with my best friend, with whomever else? Am I going to lose, these people just by being more of myself? And so what we tend to look at is, one, like, which of those fears are really present for you? And two, just really playing it out. Okay, let's ride that fear to the end. Let's say that you lost everybody in your life because you started being more of yourself. Would you prefer to keep them to continue not being yourself? And I think for most people, you put it in those plain terms and they're like, it's worth that risk. And then what they find out too is, most people who really care about you, really love you, are still going to be there, right? The things that really matter, you're not going to lose what really matters to you and what you're really meant to have. And so it's really about just playing out that worst case scenario. And then, is that what you want? Because you can keep living the same life. There's nothing stopping you, but you have to decide what that trade-off is going to be.
And I have lived that life where we look at the social media, we look at how many friends we have, we look at all the people who admire you, all your friends. And then it comes to a point where you ask yourself, like, is this really appropriate? Not an appropriate meaning like you should or should not have it, but is this going to help you to get to where you want to be?
Right.
I remember in high school, it's just like, especially in high school, middle school it starts, but high school it finishes, where the peer acceptance, where you have your groups, you have your way of thinking where, okay, I need this person to like me. I need someone to like me. And if they don't have that, then they have that social emotional displacement, where then later on it's difficult for them to build courage, confidence. All of that stems from having friends or being around people in the early ages of childhood development. And then we finally get to later on in life where we might not have got rid of the people in our lives that were anchors or people who were toxic. So we have a bunch of people in our lives that don't necessarily do good for us, or they don't bring about good in our life. And I know, like, as a coach, we want the best for our clients always. And so we want them to do good. But then there's sometimes people in their corners that maybe don't have the best intentions to them, or for them. So these people could be their partner, they could be their kids. I mean, it could be whoever, mom or dad too. I mean, it can really drain a person where someone is living up here and they're supporting all these people. But then, similar to how you said, do they belong? And if you reverted to yourself, your true self, or how you really wanted to be, would they stay? And I think it's that fear of losing people, the fear of being accepted. And then, of course, the identity that they had built, because it's about a dismantling sometimes so you can build what you really want. Because sometimes we were told to build something. We were told to pursue a career, whether it be, hey, you need to become a doctor if your parents are doctors or surgeons. Maybe they really push their kids to say, you need to be this. And then the kid is going down that path and they realize that I'm not happy. And all the friends they made, all the choices they made were just for the pleasure or the appeasement of their parents. So now they're at that crossroad. Do they defy their parents, defy their friends, defy all the years they spent in education just to pursue who they are on the inside? What's the benefit to that?
I think the benefit in a general sense is like fulfillment, but I think more importantly, it's confidence. And I've done that myself. Like I left my job. I always performed in school, top performer, graduated top of my class, got into a big corporate company. I was there for 7 years and then decided, you know what? I want to launch this business. You know, my business name is Not Your Average Fro. It's like it's not corporate at all. And I decided to leave my job, live out of a van. You know, I really threw like everything to the wind. Now I'm in a place where, you know, I'm back at work doing corporate while also having my business. My friends have not changed that significantly. My parents still love me, you know, and it's like, I realize now I can be confident rather that like, no matter what, if I'm true to myself, like what is meant to be in my life will be. That I think gives you a sense of courage as you attack other things. So now that I've left my job and I'm still in one piece and my parents don't hate me for leaving that job they were so proud of, it's like, okay, well then I could feel confident and courageous enough to take another big leap in my life, whatever that may be, you know, and know that I'm going to be okay and it's all going to work out.
This is a two-pronged question. Did your parents ever say that if you leave your corporate job, we will disown you? And then after that is going to be, even if they did say that to you and they would disown you, would you still do it?
Good question. So no, they never said that. That was definitely all in my head, right? And all a mental construct that I had created. And even if they would have, it would have been harder, but I think I would have done it anyway. Because it's like I have to live with me at the end of the day. And I can't live with myself not knowing that I could have done something and I just didn't.
Right. I work with a lot of teens, youth mentoring, things like that, you know, near and dear to my heart because I was a teacher. And one of the things I saw in the schools was the unpreparedness that was going to occur to these young adults the moment they touched college. And I mean, you can even see it in high school. They don't know about finances. They don't know how to say no. There's always yes, yes, yes. Okay, how can I help? And then also another factor is parents. Parents play a huge factor into someone's decision to go off to college and to become something. Maybe they wanted them to take a part of the family business versus they don't want anything to do with the family business. They want to be a cook. They want to be a chef. They want to be Gordon Ramsay or something, right?
Right.
But they have that parent there saying, hey, we need you to do this. We need you to do this. And I'm there coaching them. I'm saying, listen, it's difficult to say no. It's difficult to fight that true self in you because there will come a point when you are going to not be happy. Where, yes, you can take the family business and you can do it for 10 years. And then you can probably say, you know what, I did the family business enough and go off to be a chef. You could do that. Is that delay going to impact you for the long haul? Sometimes people can become mentally fatigued, mentally drained. And it's similar to burnout, where burnout is not like, oh, I'm burned out. Let me take a day rest. It could take months, sometimes years for someone to recover from burnout. And when we give ourselves a certain lifestyle or family gives us certain expectations to show up every single day to finally get to that burnout, and we're like, okay, now I need some help. I need a coach. I need someone to help me figure this out. Burnout is one of the things I tell people if you can avoid it, because when you're in it, it's very difficult to get out. What do you tell people who have a lifestyle type burnout where they maybe bought too much stuff and now they're in credit card debt, or they feel like they don't have enough? So they're always continually buying everything. Similar to my mom. She's going to listen to this episode too. She goes on Amazon and she buys all this stuff. So I'm like, you don't need this. And she's like, but I do. And I'm like, you don't need it. So she's in a lifestyle right now where she's going to keep on buying stuff from Amazon and then she's going to have no room. I don't know where she's going to put it all.
Right. Yeah. So my number one piece of advice, and this is what I center my coaching around as well, is to declutter. And I mean that in the most general sense. You know, a lot of times when we think about decluttering, we're always focused on our home, but you can declutter your stuff. You can declutter your time, your money, your relationships, your mind, you know? So that's where I say to begin. Learn how to let go, learn why you need to let go, and then that ball just starts rolling, right? So in the scenario of like, I've bought all of this stuff. Okay, first let's talk about like what you really want and what things you have that represent a life that, you know, you've been faking it around, right? Let's start learning how to like practice, you know, okay, I'm going to let go of maybe not the car, right? The car might be tough, but like maybe I let go of some nice headphones that I bought. You know, I start letting go of things little by little. I build that confidence, I build that courage. Then I can look out to the rest of my life and say, okay, I want to dismantle all these other things because they're just not serving me in being fulfilled.
And there's one critical aspect to why people always try to stay up to date. And I'm a fan of, for example, if you have a pair of headphones, let's say you have a Beat headset and it's a really good headset and you have already two pairs, there's a new one that comes out. So new Beats headphones, oh, you have to have it. Okay. Well, do you have to have three headphones? Probably not, right? You could probably get away with two. If one breaks, you have a backup, right? I'm a big fan of Plan B, where okay, if the house is burning, what do we do, right? Plan A is fire extinguisher, 911. Plan B is okay, you know, stay with your parents or something like that, right? So it's not like oh that you know the house burned down. I guess I'm just going to sleep in my car tonight. No,
Right.
no, no. Like we have a plan. And I think sometimes people, they just get into the wheel of wanting, where they're just like, I want, I want, I want, I want. Some of the most wealthy clients that I work with, they have everything. They have big houses, you know, fancy cars, good family. But what they're lacking sometimes is gratitude, where it's like, if we took a moment just to be gracious for our life, we wake up in the morning, thank you for my life, or we get to speak with someone and we're thankful for that conversation. Just doing that little insert helps them tremendously, just adding a little bit of gratitude. When we look at our life, what are some of the things that we can be grateful for? You know, of course, we can be grateful for life in general, but I'm sure there's more to that, especially as a lifestyle coach. You're going to know all the wonderful things that someone can really pay attention to.
I think the basic things are health, right? Like grateful to be here. But deeper than that, I think that a lot of times we are not grateful for who we are and like how we show up. You know what I mean? There's something that we all, and not just something, many things that we bring to the world that other people really appreciate about us, or just things that we do for ourselves that, you know, everybody doesn't do, right? And so it's like, how often do I just think or have gratitude for like who I am? And I think that that's part of the reason we collect so much stuff, because I don't feel great about what I bring to the table, or I don't know what my strengths are. I don't know what makes me special, what makes me different. And so I'm buying all the things that everybody else says I should have, right? I'm not really taking that time to hone in on me and learn me. And so I don't see the value in that. And I think that's really where we have to start. Like for me, to give a more like tangible example, you know, I'm always trying to help people be better. Always. Like it doesn't matter. I can come across sometimes critical, but I'm always just like, man, you know, this could be better. You could be better. We can do this even better than you're already doing it. And I value that. You know, I'm grateful that I have that in me. It's part of what drives my coaching, but it's also part of what makes me a great friend and a great daughter. And it's why other people, you know, would say, oh man, Jessica did this and she inspired me to do XYZ. Like that's huge. You know, there's something to be said about everyone, but everybody doesn't have that trait. And that's something I bring to the world. And that's something that when I hone in on it, it's like, well, I don't need a nice bag or a nice car, because what people value about me is that particular quality.
And when we look at ourselves, like there's certain things that you can do that I will never be able to do. And it's not even the fact of like it's a task or a mission or attaining something. It's that you have a unique way of thinking, you know, a different upbringing. And that gives you a different mindset. It gives you a different perspective. And I think many people, they fail to really appreciate their perspective of the world. It's easy to get bogged down by everything. We turn on the news, they tell us what to do. We call our parents to say how they're doing. They tell us what we should be doing. And
Yeah.
it's always someone telling us what to do versus us saying we know what to do. And I think that's a realization that many people have to get to a lot quicker, because again, when we're young, we look at how we should be, how we should conform. And then when we finally do that conforming, we have a lot of, I guess you could say, fluff on top of us. So it's kind of like, how do we get rid of all this fluff and then be our true self? We have to be courageous, right? We have to be daring to defy what the world dictates for us. And we have to say, you know what, this is what I want. This is what I should be. And there's a saying where one of the regrets that many people have in their life is failing to become the person that they were supposed to become, not so much who they became. So when life is done, you're going to be presented with a folder, a file. Going to be two separate files. One file is the life that you were destined to have, that you were supposed to be, and the file is huge. It's going to take you a lifetime to read it. But there's another file, and it's just a manila folder. And that's what you did in your life. And the discrepancy between who you can become and what you did, I think it comes down to what people truly believe that they are capable of doing. And one of the things I do with my business is I help people with their limiting beliefs, because society tells us what we can and what we can't do. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like, look at Roger Bannister. You can't run a sub 4 minute mile. NASA, you can't go to the moon. You can't do that. So there's a lot of naysayers in the world. And until someone does it initially, then it's kind of like many people are like, it can't be done. What do you tell people who have an idea that might be so far-fetched, might have never been done before? And you say, what?
You can do anything you put your mind to. Absolutely. And I love what you said about, we each bring a different perspective. My dad used to, when I would go to bed, he would say to me every single night, you can do anything you can put your mind to and never let anybody tell you that you can't. Right. And I think that that is part of why I feel like it could be great. It could be better, because I believe even if I can't envision it, that doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's not my vision to have, and so I had a client once, or a potential client, I'm sorry. I did a call with him. He wanted to learn more about my coaching. He's like, I want to save like $100,000. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you don't think that like that's weird? You're not like taken aback by that? I'm like, no. I mean, I think if you want to save $100,000, let's do it. All you need is like that plan. So I really believe, like, I'm never going to tell anybody that their dreams are off limits, because I don't know what they're capable of.
Yeah, I get far-fetched calls sometimes too, where it's like they're talking about something that has never happened before. If they talk to anyone who wasn't a coach or someone trying to help them, they would be labeled crazy. They was like, yeah, no, that's insane. You can't save $100,000. Like, you have lost it. All right. You need some help. All right. So instead of getting coaching, seek a therapist. But it's not that, right? We are there to facilitate dreams, to facilitate the life that you're going after. And sometimes you need some accountability. Sometimes you need some encouragement, because you might have, again, a family system that is not conducive to your growth. And there's nothing wrong with that. So when you're having a coach, like, that person's there to hold you accountable, because looking back again, your family might not be the most supportive system that you have. In reality, yes, family should be a great support system, but sometimes not everyone has that. Sometimes people can have very toxic families where they can come to a coach and they can say, you know what, I really want to do this. Then you have to put in the work too, because it's easy to say you want something, but when it's time to start to act, then that's when you have to show up. Kind of going to your point really quick, yes, you can be anything you want, and there is no necessarily limit. I know Kobe Bryant talked about this, where it's like he didn't talk about being a certain level. He was like, I'm always trying to be better. I'm always trying to improve my game any way that I can. So it's not a desired place or trying to be someone like he was, trying to be Michael Jordan or anything like that. He said, I want to be better. What do I have to do? I'm going to perfect. And perfection is not to saying it's perfect, is right. I'm going to be better than I was before. When we have our life, I think sometimes people think they reached the top of the mountain. They're like, I made it. All right. I'm the CEO of a company. I'm a great dad. I'm a great husband, and there's nothing else. So they just kind of go with the monotony of life, and they finally realize, wait, something is missing. So they're like, okay, well, let me travel a little bit more. So they travel a little bit more. They're like, something is missing. When we give ourselves those goals and we stop being daring and we stop really pushing ourselves, like, again, using Kobe, he was always chasing something versus we're on the mountaintop. We have the perfect family. We have the perfect situation where we can go out and travel the world, but we're not looking for anything. We're not looking for a new thing. And we found that comfort zone. The comfort zone is often the place where many people reside, and is often the place where many dreams die, because you have to get past fear. You have to get past the fear to get to the growth. And they might have done it in their life before, and they have created a comfort zone eventually after all the struggle and all the hardship. Now they're there. If someone was interested in changing their life today and they're in that comfort zone, what are 3 tips or 3 steps that you would give them to say, you know what, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and I'm going to seek a coach. I'm going to make the changes that I need to, whatever it is, I'm going to change my life.
Okay, so number 1, I would say actually write out what you want. Also, so maybe this is number 2, align it with your values. I think that that's missing for a lot of people, right? Like, oh, I want to have an amazing career. Okay, in corporate, as an entrepreneur, like what does that mean? Like, detail it, and then does that actually align with your values? Like, for me, for so long, I was focused on corporate, but eventually, when I'm married and have children, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. So I'm like, it doesn't really make sense for me to push myself so hard to rise in the ranks and then have to fight for maternity leave, right? So not just writing what you want, but like detail it. And then does that really align with what I value? And then finally, I would say start letting go, but you could start in your home, time, or money. But I would say start creating space, right? So if it's in your house and it's like, I want to be more disciplined with my eating habits. What would you have to get rid of to create space for the right cooking utensils, for the right food, right? What would you have to let go of in your money? What subscriptions might you have to cancel to afford to buy that food and those utensils, right? What commitments might you have to let go to have time to go and buy those things? So those would be my tips. That's kind of like more than 3 because I packed them in there, but I think it's envision what you want, ensure it's aligned with your values, and then start creating space little by little.
Perfect. I love those 3 tips. And there's so much to say on top of that. And what I want to do is I want people to have that conversation with you, because it's so important to open up people's minds into the life that they really, truly want, and not so much of the Hollywood fantasy that we were given, or the American dream that we were given. Because maybe having 2 kids and a dog in a white house with a picket fence is not what you want. Maybe you want to live in a cabin with a cat, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we have to embrace our uniqueness. We have to embrace who we really, truly want to become. And I think it can get clouded in society. And again, all of the facades that are presented to us every single day. There's so much more to lifestyle than what we spoke about today, because there's a whole life that we get to live, and we only get one. And we do have to make it the best. And having Jessica as a coach and on your side is going to be a wonderful thing to have. She was a pleasure to speak with today. And I know she's going to be a pleasure to have, helping you get to the life that you want. So if I can, from you, Jessica, can you please share with us any final words, and then how can people find you?
Sure. I would just say, come learn more about what I've got going on. And if you're interested, let's hop on a call. You can find information about me at nachoaveragefro.com. So that's NACHO, like the chip, and then averagefro.com. And I use that same handle on Instagram at nachoaveragefro.
Perfect. And all of that information will be in the description box below, so people can easily reach out to you and they can really start to get their lifestyle back in track. I'm excited for all the people coming out, because right now I think there's a lot of people who have forgot how to live, and for you to be able to provide that to them, I think it's going to be a huge service. So thank you so much, Jessica Malone, for coming on Coaching in Session. Great pleasure.
Thank you.
Highway when she hitting my cell. Body talking to me, I've been listening well. The type of make you forget that you've been living it. It's for the grown and the sexy. Go ahead and text me.